So yeah, I wanted to, I want to dig into peeling the curtain back on some of your blood work. I want to talk a little bit about my 28-day challenge experience so far. I've had some really interesting numbers, but
yeah, you have. You've had some really weird numbers.
Yeah, and it's starting to regulate out now, so it's kind of like what I would expect. But I wanted to, because this is kind of like a common one I was telling you before that has been coming up, just like when we hit a weight plateau or, trying to figure out how to adapt to any situation with a plateau in mind, like, hey, I've been seeing results, now all of a sudden I'm not, or I've kind of been on this same up and down fluctuation for the last couple of weeks. What's the plan of attack? So I kind of wanted to dig into that first, and then we can always talk about, and I'll give insight from my eyes. Chuck, you can talk about yours a little bit, because I feel like we're both kind of, maybe not plateauing is the appropriate word, but we're seeing some kind of like fluctuation. So I thought it'd be helpful to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to keep in mind, especially when you're on a program, is to keep your nutrition in check as well. I mean, I think one of the biggest, I want to say, failures, I don't really call it a failure, but one of the biggest setbacks is the fact that when I'm on a program and I'm working really hard all throughout that program, by the end of the week, I'm like, you know what? I worked really hard all week, and I'm going to kind of let my nutrition go a little bit. And that's where we don't see the gains that we really want to see, because we're not really focusing on both the fitness and nutrition side of things. And we got to remember that even though we're really working hard on our fitness side of things, we really need to be mindful that like 80% of our goals is going to be acquired in the nutrition aspect of things. And I think a lot of people have that reverse, where they say to themselves, I'm putting in all this work and I'm working super hard on my fitness. Yeah, I do the same thing. And then like at the end of the week, they kind of let all their nutrition go, and they don't realize that they're really, is it harmful to our goals? Yeah, I mean, just we're extending our goals out. We're pushing our goals out that much further.
And I think ultimately, so I'm going to play not exact devil's advocate, but a slight devil's advocate to that, in the sense that I feel like the reason that comes up in the first place, and this is the hardest thing, especially, and we've talked about this New Year's resolution kind of approach and mindset, and especially when you don't have, at least like we can speak to the experience of kind of being able to predict, like, all right, that's behavior that's probably going to happen. We know we can plan for it and work around it. Yeah. When you're kind of new to this, and to all the clients out there, or like even people that haven't worked with us but have tried this in the past, you guys can probably speak to it, or not, like resonate with this idea of, in the beginning, you're going to go super hard, feel that like, hey, I've been doing this, I deserve this, this is like my reward, right? This is the cookie at the end of the day. But we know that over time, if you feel like you even need a cookie in the first place, right? Like if you feel like you've been restricted to the point where you need to then reach for that, that's where I think a big kind of piece of it comes from. And then also knowing, hey, and we talk about this even like in the 28-day challenge, building that foundation of, that's why we work in certain, 20 to 10 to 0% adherence, like fluctuations, like, so like 80, 90, 100% adherence, or like the 0, 10, and 20 kind of like cheat meals, or ways where you can work it in, so you don't feel restricted at the end of the day, where you've been like doing this for X amount of weeks in a row, or even the end of the week. We can work it in at certain points throughout. And like the reason I say all this is like, I did that on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, of worked in a couple of other choices that I had in the 2 weeks prior. So like having my Quest peanut butter cup. Oh man, I was looking forward to that bad boy. And it's still like, I have my 10 grams of protein and whatnot, but I had a little bit of extra sugar with, so check this out, y'all. This is how we work it in. Peanut butter jelly sandwich, got a little bit of dark chocolate in the sandwich, and then Quest peanut butter cups, 2 of them in that sandwich as well. So it was like a good 33 grams of protein, but like 800 calories.
Yeah, like when did you come up with this concoction? I mean, and number one, I'm more upset to the fact that you didn't send me a picture. I would have appreciated the picture.
You're right.
I don't care that you ate it. Congratulations on eating it. But that's probably a cheat meal. And
yeah, 100%. And I counted that, because this is week 2, or technically week 3, where like now I'm in like 90% adherent, and then next week I'll be at 80%. So that was one of my 10% meals where I broke the adherence, like, right. And again, that's why we work this in. So like, I'm not feeling restricted. However, and this is why I bring it up too, with plateaus in mind, where there becomes this feedback loop of my weight. So I went from 193 to the next day. Now I weighed myself 2 days afterwards. Let me show you my fit index numbers, just because how much they can fluctuate, which is not a true reading. I'm at 202.8. So I went from 193 to 202.8. And again, like I'm also like, when I did this number just to check it, it was after I ate, after I worked out, after I had all this fluid in my body with clothes on. But it's to show you how much of a fluctuation. That's 9 pounds in a span of 24 hours. So I didn't actually gain 9 pounds of weight.
Was your 193 weight in the morning after a good poop?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's like completely empty, nothing in my body to, at the end of the day, after eating all of that, after working out and all those things,
after hydrating all day, everything, it's all compiled in there. Like, just to step back a second, like, did you like in your kitchen just have like all these ingredients out and you're like, I'm going to put that together with that and I'm going to smush it all together? You had a plan.
Yeah, so that's why I know, like, I have this like checklist of things, like anyone that know, and you've heard me talk about a million times, I like peanut butter and chocolate. Those are things that I like to work in where I can. I also like a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, who doesn't? I figured, hey, I'm going to enjoy my Quest peanut butter cups. I was going to enjoy a nice apple here. And I was like, you know what? I'm breaking my adherence by not having some vegetable with this apple. So I'm going to also add in that peanut butter jelly sandwich. And I realized I have these dark chocolate chips we've been baking with to make protein muffins. I'm like, I'm going to throw this on the same. So that's where like kind of was part of a plan, but then the original little sprinkles of chocolate on top was an added layer. However, what I did do was I used my hand as a reference, like by portion sizing. So I used like a thumb's worth of chocolate so that I had, even though technically that's not fat, it's not a massive quantity of it. Yeah. And the weight, again, that you're seeing a difference, because that's where when people weigh in on a too frequent basis, that's where you feel like you're hitting plateaus, because you're seeing this giant jump in the scale. And you're like, well, I just gained 9 pounds. I might as well eat whatever the hell I want for the next week because it doesn't matter. But really what happened is just weight that your body had to process. And then by making all these other decisions, you actually then added calories. That's where real weight gain comes from, and thereafter leading to that.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't add mango slices to it too, Mike. But anyway, just to touch on something you said there real quick. And a lot of people get that in their mindset is when, again, we talked about you weighed in at 193 in the morning time after fasting and all this stuff, after going to the bathroom. The next weight you did, obviously after eating all day, after hydrating, you're like, oh, damn, I gained 9 pounds. Screw it and throw everything out the window. You can't let that happen. You have to put that mindset in there that, this is just, it's one step. And, that's a weight that I did after eating, after all this stuff. And don't get on the scale the next day again. Don't do that. Don't fall victim to that. And I know you probably did that too. Don't do it. You did, didn't you? Don't do it.
I wanted to share that. That's why. Like, I wanted everyone to know.
Great, but, one of the things that a lot of the clients have been reaching out to me lately is, and I've been talking to them, is about self-affirmation. You don't beat yourself up within I gained 9 pounds. It's the end of the world. You're working hard. Let's just make minor little choices and minor little fixes all throughout it. Again, if we keep that mindset, if I'm working really hard on my fitness levels and I'm also really working very hard on my nutrition levels, you're going to attain your goals that much more faster. But again, if you get that mindset, if I'm working really hard on my fitness, screw it. I'm going to have a giant cookie with some ice cream. And again, who doesn't? Once in a while, it's a great treat. We just came off a dry January. So even though we did the 28-day challenge, we did also dry January as well, which, having 2 children, was a feat in itself, because who doesn't like a glass of wine every now and then? But I had a glass of wine the other night, and it's like, that's the first time I had a glass of wine in like almost over a month. And I was like, man, this is a good cheat. And I considered that glass of wine a cheat. You got to put that in your mind.
And like you said, it's categorizing it in a way. And like sometimes, and this is where depending on psychology and depending on the individual, if we name something a cheat, even in that self can almost be like a trigger for a snowball effect into all or nothing. Right. I find it helpful to just separate a category from, like, I like numbers, right? So 80% of the food I eat is going to be this way. 20% to like what you said is going to be what you said, like a cheat, or that shifting in the common choices, whatever we want to call it, right? The breaking adherence. But that's why there's flexibility in there and learning. Like, honestly, this is my 90% week. So that was part of my 10%. Next week's going to be my 80% adherence week. Honestly, next week, I don't expect to see a huge drop in my body fat percentage, honestly. I expect to see a plateau almost, like maintenance, and increase in my muscle mass. And even that's this week. Over like weeks 3 and 4, my focus was to increase muscle mass, because from weeks 1, week 2, because of the amount of just overall like fat loss I saw with some of the lean mass that may have, truthfully, I think it's again, as I introduced protein, like I already saw my muscle mass come back up and level off. So, but just being able to double down on that, because that's the equation I like to think of too, is if our weight stays the same, but muscle mass goes up and body fat goes down, our body fat percentage still goes down, but our weight on the scale stays the same. So it seems like it's almost an unreal, it's not a real plateau. It's just what it seems because you're only looking at the weight. And that's why body composition to me is also so helpful with a plateau, or thinking you're at a plateau.
Right. And also from the same notation on that one, if, you know, you're seeing that your lean muscle mass is going up, you know, but your body fat is going down, and the weight scale is also going up, it's because you're increasing muscle mass. You know, you got to remember, muscle weighs more than fat. So your scale may be going up, but your body fat percentage may be going down. You know, I ultimately say it a lot. If you are pleased with the way your body is kind of forming out when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, stay off the scale.
That's a good one too. The scale is just one variable, right? And the non-scale victories or the non-scale wins can just, like, that's why photos, and that's why we like taking photos. And when I say we take photos, like our clients take photos for themselves, for that visual reassurance and creating those affirmations and that self-talk, to not just fall into, hey, the scale is what defines me, and even some people find value in that, which is a very slippery slope, but realizing you're more than just what's on the scale. And that's I think a perfect segue into like why we like doing blood work where it's appropriate or where we can fit in with our clients. And with that being said, Chuck, you got some updated lab reports that I figure we're going to be able to, fortunately, Chuck's going to dig into with us.
Yeah, I was a little defeated, and I don't know if you saw my post the other day, but you know, brain chemistry and blood work go hand in hand. And that's the one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, is the blood work and the brain chemistry and everything. And I knew something in me was off, because I could feel it. Even though my workouts were great, my nutrition was great, everything was awesome. You know, coming off the 28-day cleanse, my nutrition's at 90% clean eating, my workouts have been great, with the exception of my neck being jacked up, which every doctor in the world has looked at my neck so far and said,
Dr. Amato.
Yeah, Dr. Amato. Dr. Amato was a little upset that he couldn't get my vertebrae back in, because my C3 and my C4 rotated. And that's the reason I can't turn my head to the right now. And he can't crack them back in, because as he says, my traps are just too damn dense.
You got to get them to relax, bro. Get those traps to relax.
Yeah, not going to relax. But anyway, to revert back, is I knew something was off, because I didn't feel right. Okay. So reached out to my functional medicine doctor. And again, it depends on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. Mike knows that I'm pretty deep down the rabbit hole. I go pretty far down the rabbit hole. So I have a doctor that I go to and get my blood taken every 6 months. And I analyze. I have 5 years of blood work right here. And I keep it as a reference as to where I was and to where I am. And my blood work looks great, but I knew something was off. And my body has a very hard time processing estrogen and converting it. I don't know why. It's been like that forever. And my estradiol level is through the roof. And I knew it was wrong. It leveled out the last time I had, and I felt great the last time I had it, but I knew something was off, and my estradiol level crept back up again. Now, it could be my environment. You know, ultimately, Mike knows this. Not a lot of people know this. I'm surrounded by stress every day of my life. So the stress levels on me, and I kind of figured this out, the stress levels that I have on me increase my estradiol. And that's the reason why my estradiol levels are through the roof. So stressors on your life, I'm not obese, but being obese, having a lot of stress, that's going to cause estradiol to skyrocket in men. Now, increased estradiol in men isn't the worst thing in the world. It could develop some body deformities, but it also can definitely mess with your mind. So if you're not feeling great and you're having great workouts and your nutrition is great, I would definitely suggest going in and getting some blood work done just to check out your chemistry and seeing how far your chemistry is off. Now, all my other blood work came back looking great, with the exception that I'm taking way too much vitamin D. But because of the pandemic, I upped my vitamin D drastically. I take way too much.
Which we've covered that in the past. Like, you're taking a high dosage.
I'm taking a super high dose. My vitamin C is through the roof as well, but again, because of the pandemic, my vitamin C has increased. Other than that, my blood work has come back looking phenomenal. And my cortisol level is at 8.7, which is a great level to be at. And that's one other thing you definitely need to look at. If you can't get up out of bed in the morning, it could be that your cortisol level's off. If you can't fall asleep at night, it could be your cortisol levels are off. My cortisol level came in at 8.7, looking really good. So I was pretty happy with my blood work, with the exception of that estradiol level skyrocketing again. And I knew that was what was affecting my brain chemistry.
So I think there's a lot of takeaways from this, obviously, but one I wanted to pull out for everybody, because a lot of you probably watching, listening, and absorbing this won't have all of that. Maybe going over the last 5-10 years reports, maybe we've started to get you on those diagnostics, so you're going to start to get those reference points. And even if you do, like, I think I want to pull out one thing I'm hearing that can be a carryover for pretty much everybody is when you are feeling something's not right and you think, because like I hear this a lot too, Chuck, and obviously you could probably speak to this as well. It's like, hey, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. Like, I'm eating this way, I'm executing, I'm getting solid workouts in. I feel like I'm on point with my sleep, or it's improved. I'm hydrating, but it's just my numbers aren't feeling. I don't feel right. Whatever's going on, or something's up.
Yeah.
Being able to take action on that, and that's why I think I bring it back to the plateaus of it. A plateau can be an example as well of, it's not that you're not putting in work or you're not determined. It's not a question of the dedication side. It's more of, hey, is there some other response or biomarker we could highlight to be able to say, all right, this is what's going on. Let's make an adjustment because of it.
Absolutely. And that's where I was talking to a lot of the clients about self-affirmation, is the fact that, they may feel down about where they're plateauing or where their goals are, or they're not hitting their goals. You can't beat yourself up over that. And it could be the fact that, something's off in your blood work, but it doesn't resort into you beating yourself up or getting defeated because you're hitting a plateau and you're not feeling well. It could ultimately be very small adjustments in your micronutrients that we need to address. But you don't know that, because if you go to a regular doctor and you go to a physical, they're going to look at your blood work and they're going to say, your cholesterol level is great. See you later. And that's it. They don't look at any other of these markers. And that's why we have the sheet that we can give to your doctor and say, hey, like, we're working with these guys and I need to get a little bit more in depth in my blood work. And listen, again, insurance covers it. All your doctor has to do is check off on the blood work chart. It's no great work that he's doing. He's just putting X's in the boxes that we tell him to put boxes on. Then you request a copy of your blood work and bring it to us, and we review it and we look at it for you. And the majority of these fixes can be done with natural supplementation.
And I think that's where, to your point, Chuck, if you don't know, though, that's where there's, I think, still sometimes this gap between, again, your general, your primary care physician, your general practitioner. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just they don't have that degree. And even if you think of the normal range, when you look at these tests and you talk to our specialists or doctors or anything like that, what's considered normal and what's considered optimal are two different ranges. And we've talked about that as well. Right? So like, we want to get you to optimal, not just, and maybe we want to start to get to normal first if we're really on the other end of the spectrum, but get to normal and go from normal to optimal. And that's even like with what we're doing. Like, I'll even, again, share from the plateau perspective. I'll give some insight to what I'm doing is, again, going from, let's read the data trends here, y'all. This is where we go to the data and we go to the charts.
Go to the data, Mike.
We go, January 17th was the first day of me starting the challenge. So I'm at 197. Then I go down, and that's 197 at, let's see what the exact body percentage, 21.1%. It's kind of high, not so good, right? And then looking.
Hold on, let me peel that back. He just said kind of high, 21.7. 21. It depends on your age.
21.1. Don't cut me too high.
Sorry, 21.1. Depends on your age. Okay, it depends on a lot of body fat percentages depend on your age as well.
Yeah, that's
the older you get, the harder it is going to be for you to get down into a lower body fat percentage. It's just naturally going to happen because your metabolism slows down, your body starts to change, your chemistry changes in your body over time. So 21.1. Sorry, Mike. for your age group, you may consider that to be high. Personally, I don't. I still think that you're in a fit form. Yeah, Mike, flexing. But to a 45-year-old person or a 50-year-old person, that's in the athletic range. That's that's considered in a category of being an athlete. Okay, so keep that in your mind.
And that's like to your point, Chuck, being mindful of like, what's the comparison? I was talking to a client earlier today, and I was actually working out while we were doing our call, and because I walk over to my computer, take my notes, and then I do my set, and we're chatting, and then I take further notes. And he's like, dude, you're just always going, huh? I'm like, you have to understand, like, I spent the last 10 years working to become a professional athlete in a professional athlete work capacity. So there's a level that is part of my mindset. And the reason I say all that is because I hold myself to a standard to that capacity. Like, for example, I mean, I'm not saying body composition for a fighter, that would be like way leaner that I don't want to even have to try and deal with, but saying I want to be 15 to 18%, because that's what would be a good like walking around percentage for me to then be able to have to cut down. So that's, again, from my perspective, highlighting to your point, Chuck, don't base what I'm thinking is good on for you personally. But going back to that, knowing where we want to be and hitting somewhat of a plateau or so, right. Not getting frustrated, right? Not saying I'm just going to throw it away and give up. It's okay. And that's where I think a coach comes into play, where we can come into play, or whomever you're going to work with comes into play, or at least being able to have that assessment of, all right, going to the data, what's working, what's not. Like I saw immediately, body fat percentage came down, but my muscle mass came down. Probably just, again, because I was overly hydrated. Give me a decently more accurate number with that mass. I don't have the same kind of protein coming in, and I had an empty stomach a little bit more than I did. So now when you see these data coming up, my muscle mass has already come up like 3 or 4 pounds. And in a week, you're not going to gain 3 to 4 pounds of true hard muscle. It's a matter of blood flow being in there, being kind of with everything in my stomach and the digestion side. So say all that to say, like, that's where it's all these little facets and variables to be mindful of.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a plateau. My goal was to get down to 12% body fat coming off of the cleanse. However, I've plateaued and I'm stuck at around 14.8, and I hover between 14.8 to about 15.3. And that's my body just likes being in that range. It's going to be very difficult for me to get down to a 12% body fat. As a matter of fact, I was talking to my functional doctor the other day, and I said to him, listen, I want to get down to 12% body fat. We were on a Zoom call, and he just kind of shot his head up, and he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I want to get down to 12% body fat. He's like, dude, you're 45, you're over 200 pounds. You know how hard that's going to be for you to do that? I guess I know how hard it's going to be, but I'm up for the challenge. He's like, yeah, dude, that's like being a bodybuilder. You don't have to waste your time doing that. I was like, to each their own, Doc, but it's my body just is. I work out 6 times a week, combination of very intense jiu-jitsu and lifting heavy. I eat clean 90% of the time. So my body just naturally likes to be in this range. Do I want to get down to 12%? Sure. Is it going to be difficult? Yeah, but my body has plateaued to where it is. And no matter how much more hard work I can put in, I have to go at 100% clean eating and now incorporate way more cardio into my workouts to get down to that level.
Yeah, and that's where it's, again, what we look at is the juice worth the squeeze, as that old saying would go, right? Yeah. Like, is the net result we want to get to worth the effort putting in? And knowing this idea of almost like a set point, what's the weight and body composition that we're naturally going to gravitate towards based on, again, what the quality of life that we want to live is and what feels good. So you're going to gravitate towards more training no matter what the average person is going to be, just because of who you are, because of who I am. And many of you out there probably watching are going to be in that category as well. And maybe even if you're not, that's totally fine. Even if it's hey, I'm training twice a week and I'm just going for walks in between or anything like that. It's, again,
and that's okay too.
Being mindful of what fits into your life, but then also adjusting those goals and saying, hey, for me, I don't ever want to see 10 to 15, anything lower than 15% body fat. I really don't want to see ever again. I'll do it if it happens to be there, but I'm not going to put in the work that I know for my body it takes to get there. And to your point, Chuck, having that as a reminder is helpful too, so that you can have a balance in life, have the percentages that you want to enjoy. And if you want to get there anyways, we know what it's going to take and we know how we're going to have to get there. That's another piece of it too.
Right. Again, it all depends on what quality of life you want what your ultimate goal is. It could be a more realistic goal. You don't have to go super crazy like Mike and I tend to get sometimes. But you know, there is a balance between healthy eating and a happy, you know, balanced life and attainable goals. And again, it all depends on how deep down the rabbit hole you really want to go.
So here's the question, Chuck, and I kind of want to we're going to shift gears here for everybody, because I know a lot of people are curious, all right, this is all well and good. This perspective's great, but I know you guys want the actionable things, and I figured we'll kind of, again, pull back another layer of curtain of what's the actionable things that we do in these circumstances. So let's talk specifically for you for a second, Chuck, now, and then we can dive in for me as well. But based on now the report that you got, blood work that you got, the feedback that you got, how do you process this moving forward, and how do you keep yourself, again, with those affirmations? What are some ways you like to practice that yourself personally? How does that look in the next week?
Yeah, so what I discussed I was going to do with my functional doctor, Dr. Rand, is I'm going to tweak my micronutrients and tweak my supplementation for the next month. And I'm going to do he's going to send me another script and by the end of the month. And I'm going to take a look as to how that composition of my chemistry changed in my body. And if it did, what other changes we need to make. So if it changed after the month, I'm going to stick with the program that I'm doing. If it didn't, then we need to make another adjustment. As far as the stressors that have been in my life that are increasing that estradiol level, what I've decided to do is I'm going to do more meditation in the sauna. So rather than sitting there and getting on my phone or answering text messages or answering emails, I'm going to leave the phone out of the sauna. I'm going to put the chromotherapy lights on. I'm going to put a little spa radio on in the sauna, and I'm going to meditate. So I'm going to try to decompress every single night after my workouts by doing at least a half hour of meditation in the sauna, try to get those stressors out and see if I can lower that estradiol level by doing that. Now, also, you know, there are things that I can do within my workout as well to try to decrease that level. But I think I'm going to start by doing that and testing that to see how it goes just within the next couple of weeks.
I think that's honestly a perfect kind of approach, especially knowing you, Chuck, and knowing how much, or how little, I should say, that actual complete shutdown time happens, or I can't even say complete shutdown time, but just shifting to a lower gear and just pulling some of that pressure off. And yeah, not having my emails and texts to respond to.
You don't know how hard it's going to be.
Yeah, that's why I have to take a note to myself, reminder, blocking out my calendar. Don't text Chuck at this time to this time. Leave him alone.
It's a stressor in itself, just thinking about it. I'm having anxiety thinking about just shutting off for a half hour.
I'm with you, man. That's something I talk to even, my mother-in-law about all the time, about having that ability to just shut my brain off. So in that vein, what I'm doing too, and I'll share with you guys to, again, have this tackle of a plateau. Not even that's a plateau. I'm just shifting to now going from the focus of lowering body fat percentage with the exclusive thought of lowering fat, but now increasing muscle now, and not even having to peel off as much fat at the moment, but to shape the body the way I want it to, is really investing in sleep, having 2 young girls, just kids in general, right? So, and what I find myself doing is 6 to 8, I blocked out times to be with my wife. So from 6 to 8, me and Ashley are going to have dinner. We're going to give the girls a bath. We're going to read them books. And honestly, still Ashley's doing a lot of that. Truthfully, the girls gravitate towards her, but I'm there to have that time. I get the kitchen squared away, whatever we're going to do. I don't go on my computer, laptop, whatever. Now, what really happens, truthfully, is by 7 o'clock, once the girls are going to bed and starting their falling asleep process, I pull up my laptop, pull up my phone, start digging into things. So I'm going to promise myself that after 8 o'clock, I'm shutting it down no matter what. And then I'm just going to walk away, and I have to leave it for the next day. So even right now, look, right now we're in that window of bam. After I do this, it's very tempting. It's very tempting for me to want to then go play, because Chuck, and for you guys in the future, we're going to level up the production quality here. So I'm going to be experimenting with some cameras and some audio stuff. It's very tempting for me to want to do that even once we finish up this podcast. But I'm not. Shut it down. I'm going to walk away, and I'm even going to play some video games, and then I'm going to go to bed early tonight. That's my game plan. So point of me saying all that is being okay with recognizing there was something that didn't maybe go perfect, being able to make a change based on that. And the reason I'm doing that, just so the why behind the what, is because I'm focusing on growing muscle, I need to sleep, right, and have to recover. And then secondarily, what I know is that when I'm not sleeping enough, my food choices go to the garbage can. Yeah. Even though I'm staying within the parameters of the challenge, like I know that for now week 4 coming up, where I can increase the non-adherence food choices, I could go really, really hard off the deep end if my sleep isn't on point.
Right, and that's a big thing when you're recovering. I was sending messages to all the clients today, asking them about the recovery, because when that recovery is not there, especially after a hard week of working out, when that recovery is not there, that chemistry that we talked about is going to be thrown off because your body is not recovering properly. It's going to cause you to make choices that you may necessarily not want to make, so you got to make sure that you're recovering properly. And that's where, again, I like to talk about the micronutrients, making sure you're getting proper micronutrients to support recovery as well. I add magnesium in every single night before I go to bed because it helps me sleep properly and it helps my muscles recover.
Yes, yeah, man. You got that zinc and magnesium combo. Yeah, maybe we throw some melatonin in there. Who knows? We got all types of fun stuff. So, and to your point, Chuck, that's why it's easy, and that's where I think the training side is attractive because it's can be getting a benefit to work out and get a push and see the numbers. But when you need to it's hard sometimes not to do anything or not to do anything with a purpose. It's easy to just bullshit without a purpose and just let time go to waste, but having a purpose behind it. So that's what I wanted to kind of touch on all the points here. So we got some resources for you guys, from plateaus to being able to take action on it, to know that, hey, it's okay, and how to change that conversation, that dialogue internally. And then again, if you have questions, obviously that's what Chuck and myself and the rest of the team here are for. And we have resources below in the description. And I think we might even add another resource again, where for those of you that want to do the blood work that Chuck was talking about that we utilize, we can even create an opt-in for you guys. So we'll put a little put your email in. We'll send you guys some more resources for that. And Chuck, I leave the platform to you.
Yeah, I just want to wrap it up again with that self-affirmation. If you're putting in the work, if you're making those decisions to even walk down a healthier path, you're doing the right thing. So give yourself credit for that. Don't beat yourself up over that. Just because you've plateaued or you turned down the wrong road, you turn back around and get back on that healthier path. You can do it, but don't beat yourself up over it. Identify that you made a wrong decision and make the choices to get back to where you were. Again, don't beat yourself up over it. Give yourself some self-affirmation that I made the right decision by starting this. I'm clean eating, or I'm working out, or I made the wrong decision once. I got to get back to it. And then take the action to get back to it. Don't just identify the fact that you did something wrong and you made a bad decision and then just say, screw it and forget about it. Make the decision and put actions into place to get back there.
Bam. Well said, Chuck. Well said. So I appreciate you guys, Chuck. I appreciate you. Now it's time where we got to shut it down. And see you. Hold on. We got to do a cheers.
It's late. Good cheers in it. Cheers. All right, everybody, be safe.
Later, y'all.